In today's video, we're doing a smoked brisket on a Weber Kettle using a Slow N Sear and an UltraQ to control it. Hey, this is Ricer from Dead Broke Barbecue, Wisconsin, and welcome back to the channel. But if you're new here, we try to help you enhance and amplify your backyard barbecue fun. In today's video, I'm doing a smoked brisket on a Weber Kettle using a Slow N Sear and an UltraQ to control the temperatures of the cook. Now, you talk about a cook that made you feel like you're cheating the whole time. This one I sure did. It's simple enough to run a Weber Kettle and a Slow N Sear, but if you add an UltraQ to control the temperatures, it's like cheating in math class. Check out the smart kid and do the old over the shoulder. I ain't kidding you. The only thing that I had to do was spritz that brisket a couple times and reload that Slow N Sear to finish off that cook. So grab that honeydew list and that lawn chair, Troy. We're gonna smoke up a brisket the cheating way. All right, it's early in the morning and today we're doing a smoked brisket on the Weber Kettle using a Slow N Sear, and we're gonna control the temperatures using our UltraQ. It's an exciting day. I can't wait to get this thing under some smoke. And last night I trimmed up this brisket and injected it with some Butcher Barbecue prime brisket injection and put a layer of kosher salt on it and wrapped it with cellophane and put it back in the refrigerator until just now. But we're gonna top this brisket off with some premium rub and some savory pecan seasoning. Or like some of you say, pecan. But let's go ahead and start adding some premium rub to it first. And on this cook, I'm gonna be putting it fat cap down. Flip it over, get a little bit of it on the fat cap side. I trimmed this up pretty tight. We don't like a lot of fat on the point end. Don't forget the sides. Now this brisket is nice and cold, and that's a great way to start it out. It's actually kind of chilly here today yet. Get it on. After you flip it over, tap it in a little bit. Now we'll just put a little layer of the savory pecan on it too. I actually say pecan. Now today's video is sponsored by Wine Still Sold Out, or WTSO. Now over at WTSO, they have wines across the globe and they're changing bottles daily. TSO's website, they have awesome shopping options. They got last chance wines, weekly tasting, and premium selections. And if you use my promo code BBQ20, you can save $10 on any purchase of $50 or more. So what are you waiting for? Head over to WTSO's website, get yourself some bottles of wine to go with your barbecue. And I'm actually gonna use some of this Cabernet Sauvignon as a braising liquid for this brisket. And while this brisket sets and sweats and absorbs some of this salty goodness, let's get this Weber Kettle fired up. All right, so the first thing we do is just get our UltraQ set up and plug in the fan. And that's hooked in right here with the cord and underneath. And I'm running my dampener at 50%. I don't know, it's my first time using it, so we'll see if that gives us enough air power to keep our temps where we're gonna set them. Then we're gonna put in our charcoal grate right at the bottom. Get that in. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put in my Slow N Sear, and that's gonna be directly right across from my air intake. That's where the fan, and it's blowing, and you can see it's flanged out a little bit, so we want that directly across. And now I'm gonna cover up part of the charcoal grate because we wanna keep this airflow underneath. We don't want it to be coming up through that grate. So I just take it and I put it right in here. Now some guys will go ahead and wrap this up first before, but I like to use this and just stop it up this way. That way I can tuck it in and it's tight up against the kettle. That way we don't have any airs blasting through the bottom of it. There's always just that one side that has that little bit of gap. All right, so my next step is to get about 12 briquettes right in one corner of the Slow N Sear. And you don't have to be exact, but I usually do about 12 of them. Pretty darn close if you ask me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and a half. That's good enough. Okay, we're just gonna get that wax cube kind of built right in here. We'll mount a little bit of this charcoal around it. Light it up. This half one's gonna fit perfectly right there. Oh, snuffed it out. Magic. Block a little air. Snuffs out the fire. Isn't that amazing? We'll leave that half one there. Just push this up. All right, so I'm gonna give this charcoal about 10 minutes just to start ashing over a little bit before I add more to it. All right, so my charcoal's starting to ash over a little bit in the Slow N Sear. Now I'm gonna get the rest of the kettle set up. So we're gonna go ahead and put some water in here. Fill up our trough. You wanna use warm water, obviously. Yeah, it's pretty good. Go ahead and just throw some wood chips right down the bottom. I throw mine on the bottom instead of on the top. We've got a mixture of cherry and pecan in here. And we're gonna fill up the Slow N Sear with some more charcoal. We're gonna go ahead and put in our grate and make sure that our hinges are right over the top of the Slow N Sear. Close up my vent. We're gonna close that all the way tight because you're not gonna want any air coming up through that vent. You want all the air to come through that Viper fan from the UltraQ instead. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and get my pit probe set up. And for right now, we're just gonna hook it right about here. All right, so our brisket is really sweated up and it's looking good. Let's get that in there. Set that right about here. So now we're gonna wanna make sure that we got this over a little bit. You don't need to have it too close to this meat. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add one of my food probes, stick it in right about here. And then where I grabbed it, I wanna go ahead and put just a little bit more rub on top of it. Put our lid on and we're gonna go back over on this side where our fan is because we want that convection all the way back around. So carefully put your lid on. Wanna make sure that we turn our vent down. I'm gonna go really just where a little bit of air is coming out because obviously a kettle, it's not very airtight. We're gonna have some leakage around the edges a little bit. I can clip it together if I see a lot of it, but right now, this ain't bad. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get my app set up on the UltraQ. Open up the app itself, we'll open up our pit temp, and I wanna get that set up to 275 degrees. Apply changes, go back, and we want our food temp, I wanna get that to 160 because that'll give me an alert when it gets time and it's getting close to where we're going to be in that stall and we're going to decide if we're going to wrap it or not at that time. And let's go ahead and let's set a timer for 1 hour. Apply changes. So that way I have a reminder when it's time to come out and spritz this brisket. I'm gonna be using an apple cider vinegar and water mixture. Probably gonna do about a 50-50 ratio. Now obviously it's gonna take a little time for this pit to get up to temperature. It's not gonna take us that long to get to that 275 target that we put in our app. So I'll check back in an hour and we'll see where we're at then. All right, so our 1 hour timer went off, plus I added another hour because that brisket still had plenty of moisture. There was still juices run all over the top of it. And I also added a couple pieces of wood underneath it just to dome it up a little bit to get some of that moisture to run off. I don't want it to pool up because then your rub doesn't stick. But let's check it out. This is 2 hours in. Take off the lid. Okay, so yeah, it's starting to get a nice color to it, but I can tell right now that our rub isn't sticking. You can see right there. We're gonna give it a little bit of moisture on top. Just get it coated up a little bit. I'm gonna close up the lid and set a timer for another hour, and then just come back and check that bark. I want that seasoning to start to stick. Now I also added another probe temp just for fun. I got them, might as well use them, right? And they're both reading right around 145 degrees. And I'm gonna run this brisket up to at least 160 degrees before I wrap it. But I typically wrap just by the look of the bark, not so much by temperature. But like they say, it really doesn't take any more smoke after 160 degrees. I guess some science fiction guy came up with 160 degrees. Maybe he watched Star Wars and Star Trek all the time, but I don't know. I typically just go by color, but I do use that 160 degrees for a guideline. I'm gonna mow the lawn next. Maybe I'll even bring you with. You know, when you got an UltraQ, you got extra free time. Driving around on your lawnmower and not worrying about temperatures in your pit. I mean, I'm literally mowing and I don't even care. Oh, I'm gonna run over that brush. Crazy drunk driver. I can get my to-do list done. I just drive around just for fun even. Gravy life. Sit around on the Davenport. Got some varmints running around here. Maybe I'll have to drive around and put my 6-shooter on. Cause I got all kinds of time. Cause I got an UltraQ. Are you kidding me? I'll shoot varmints for the rest of the day. Yeah, back by the swamp. Beaver Dam. Thank you, Barbecue Bob, for sending me the UltraQ and giving me more free time. After I get done with the next splits, I'm taking a nap. This is hard, exhausting work. Driving a lawn tractor. All right, so I'm 4 hours into this cook. Let's go ahead and check out and see what this is starting to look like. So our bark is starting to get some color. I think we're gonna run it a little bit longer here though, because our seasoning isn't sticking 100%, so we're gonna run it just a little bit longer, but I wanna get a little bit more flavor on it. Add a little more water to our trough. I'm gonna put on the lid, and I'm gonna set a timer for another 30 minutes. And then I'm gonna come back out and check and see if my rub is starting to stick, because again, I don't wanna wrap it up because that's just gonna wash all that flavor off. We want that to be adhered to that meat. So you can see that this thing's running right around that 275 target. Now obviously with this one, the shutter speed doesn't set right, so it's not gonna look right. Now I'm pretty impressed the way the UltraQ is working, because it gets really close to that temperature that you're striving for. And the next thing you know, that fan will just pulsate a little bit when it needs it. Sometimes the bursts are a little longer, and other times it's a quick little puff, but it's pretty cool that it has that much intelligence inside that thing. Now, like I said earlier, I'm gonna use some Cabernet Sauvignon for my braising liquid. So let's go ahead and open up this bottle and give it a chance to breathe. All right, here we go. That was kind of a wimpy pop, but oh well, it'll work. Now this calculated risk is awesome. I love it. Go over to WTSO and grab yourself a bottle. You'll thank me for it, trust me. It's party time. All right, so our half-an-hour timer went off, and my temperature probes say that I'm running about 165 degrees internal. So I'm gonna pull this brisket off, get it wrapped up, and we'll get it back on there. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. You know, not a bad bark, not exactly where I want it, but I can see there's a lot of moisture still pooling up. So let's pull our probes out, get this brisket in some foil. But it's looking okay. Get them right on here, and again, we're gonna leave it how it came off. The fat cap is on the bottom. Take one, get the next one over. Fold it like this, and you want to get it tight as you can. Just gonna pick this up a little bit and dump just a little bit of wine down in there. Not much. Put that in there. Bring this up to the top. And flop it. Piece over here, get this pulled up as tight as we can. That looks like a little bundle of joy. All right, now that we got this all wrapped up, let's get it back in. Take our little wood chunks off, get them out of the way, and we're gonna just put her in this direction. And I'm only gonna use one probe, and we'll stick her in this thicker part of the flat. Right about there. Put on the lid and set a timer for an hour. But I'm just gonna basically monitor this app. I don't need to come out here and show you guys every time I come out and check the temperature. So now that I got all my chores done and the brisket's all wrapped up, it's wine time. I get to sit around and relax and wait until it's about 195 degrees, and then I gotta get back to work. So I better not drink the whole bottle, but there's gonna be plenty of chugs taken. Trust me. Cheers. All right, we're 8 hours into this cook, and the UltraQ is telling me that we're right around that 205 degrees. Let's check it out and see if it's probe tender. Take off our lid, we'll pull out our probes, and let's just open this up. Now I did check this one other time to see how we're doing once I hit around that 195, 198 degrees. But let's see here. She's feeling pretty tender, not much pullback at all. Really soft over here on this point end, but the flat's feeling pretty good. We're right around that 203, 204, 205. All right, this brisket's done. We're gonna go ahead and let this thing burp off a little bit. And what I mean by letting it burp off, I'm gonna leave that foil opened up for about 10 minutes. And that way, it won't continue to cook. So in 10 minutes, I'm gonna put this little happy bundle in a cooler and let it rest for about 2 hours. And then next time you see me, we're gonna slice into it and do a taste test. We're hungry. Okay, so our brisket is rested for 2 hours. Let's go ahead and get this thing sliced up. We're gonna take off the aluminum foil, and I wanna save this au jus. Still steaming a little bit, and that's kind of the norm. Got a little wiggle to her. Now I had a problem, and I see it did rip. This foil split on me a little bit when I took it and put it in the cooler. Take this off and set it right here. We'll grab our fat separator. I'm gonna make a little funnel and just get that in there, because I always save this for later for warming up some sandwiches or whatever, or just some regular old mopping sauce. And there's not a lot in here, but there's enough. We'll just take and set this off to the side for now. Now our grain is running this way, so we're just gonna start right here. Start cutting it off. And there wasn't a lot of point on this one. There was just a little bit. It was kind of a weird brisket where it was just kind of wrapped. It wasn't all the way across the top like I'm used to, but hey, there wasn't a lot to pick from, so beggars can't be choosers. Pick this one out of here, cut off a chunk, try it out. Tender and juicy, and I'm glad that I injected it with that Butcher's Prime brisket. Lots of good flavor on the outside. Yeah, we'll take a couple more slices off, and then we'll cut into this little bit of point that we've got here. The bark isn't bad. Probably would have helped if I would have not foiled it and put it in some butcher paper or just let it run naked. But it's still stuck to it, and that's a good thing. Cut right here. Not bad. Real good, actually. Take a little chunk of this, cut this off. Now, obviously, this is going to be very tender on this part. Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Now, there's a lot of moisture inside this brisket, but some of it that you see on the cutting board, yeah, it came from the foil when I was dumping it in the fat separator, but still. Awesome. I don't know if you can see, but that's a decent smoke ring. That ain't bad. And there's juice running out of her. I don't squeeze my brisket, but just holding it, you can see it run out. Get into this piece some more. Now there's a little bit of sweet in this brisket, but that's from the Cabernet Sauvignon and the Butcher's Barbecue Premium Rub. Split this one in half and eat this again. But it's tender and it's got a lot of juice in it, and I'm gonna tell you right now that UltraQ made this cook easy. You just set it and forget it, pretty much. Now, I did have to add some charcoal right when I went ahead and foiled it up. But that's kind of typical when you get around that 8-hour range of cooking. You're gonna have to load up the Slow N Sear. The Slow N Sear with the UltraQ and the Weber Kettle, I admit it, I'm cheating. But it was great. I ain't gonna quit. Lop off another chunk. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with washing it down with a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon from Wine Still Sold Out. Cheers. Hey boys, this brisket is so dang good, you ain't even gonna wanna chew it. You're just gonna swallow it whole, trust me. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become a subscriber. Turn on that notification bell because you never know. I might come up with another cheating way to cook some protein. But I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next video. I tell you, I'm gonna flatten that guy's tires one of these days. Now, obviously, it's gonna take about. Now, do you want to take about what are we gonna take about? Nature is calling us. That's a sandhill crane. Might be good on the barbecue. Shut up! I'm filming. Jesus. Really, truck? Get away. This video, we're doing a